Hey guys, in today's video, I am going to go over a very basic and easy way to get started with composting. This is not a specific scientific exact temperature composting method. If you're looking for that, find a different video because that is not what this is. This is for someone who is just getting started, who's never composted before, and you don't want to spend a lot of money investing in supplies and materials when you're just trying it out to see if you like it. So this is a way that you can do this for very little, if not zero money, and just get your feet wet and see if composting is for you. So that's what today's video is about. Hope you enjoy. So a few things to consider when you want to start composting are location, what kind of setup you're going to use, and materials that you're going to use. So this can look different depending on your situation. Now in my situation, I am keeping my compost pile inside the perimeter of my garden fence for two reasons. Number one, it'll keep our dogs out of it because our dogs would dig through there if I had it outside the fence. And also number two, it's a lot easier for me to access it when I want to spread it on my plants. So I'm keeping it inside the fence for those reasons. Now, you don't even need to have any kind of materials for setup. You can just literally make a pile on the ground wherever you want. I mean, wherever it works in your yard. Now, the thing is, my youngest child is 14 years old, so I don't need to worry about toddlers getting into the compost pile. Now, if that's your situation, if you have toddlers and you let them free range in the yard, then maybe you need a different setup that you can keep it away from your toddlers. But for me, that's not necessary, so I'm just gonna throw it on the ground. So basically, I chose my location to have it out of the way of my gardening rows so that it's not gonna get disturbed. And I wanted it kind of accessible to a big pathway so that I can get like wheelbarrows or the quad or even my husband's tractor if he comes in and wants to scoop some up for me and carry it somewhere. I wanted it to be accessible there. So I moved it to the edge of my garden, and it's right behind my chicken house here. This is the shed where my chickens sleep. So I have it back here. It's kind of off out of the way and a little bit shaded for most of the day. So basically, I'm gonna start with 2 piles, and you can do 3 if you want to, but I don't think I'm gonna need 3 for a while. The compost that I'm starting now is not gonna be used until next fall or spring. So this is gonna sit for a long time. This is not something I'm trying to quickly compost and use in this year's garden. I've already spread compost for this year's garden. So this is for next year. And basically when you're composting, it's just a ratio of greens to browns, and I'll explain what that means. So greens are nitrogen rich, either food scraps or animal waste, manure, things like that. Those are greens. That's what they consider greens. Anything that's rich in nitrogen. You also need browns, which are carbon rich materials. That is anything like dead leaves, straw, wood chips, sawdust, anything like that. That would be considered a brown. And so you need about 3 times as many browns as you do greens. And that's just like the general ratio. And again, I don't get that specific. I don't measure things. I don't take the temperature. I just throw it in a pile and every once in a while stir it. It works fine enough for me. So do what you want. If you want to get real specific, you can, but that's the basic ratio, just 3 to 1 browns to green. So what I use for my browns are dead leaves, which I don't have right now during this season because I've already used them all for last year's compost. But I do have straw, and so I'm gonna probably use some straw for now. And as the summer goes on, you can use grass clippings as well. If you let them dry out first, then they would be brown. If you use them while they're still green, then they'd be a green, a nitrogen. But if you let them dry out and you scoop up the dead grass and throw that on, that could be used as a brown too. So anyways, that's getting a little more specific than I even planned to get. But so basically I'm gonna make 2 piles. Let me show you what I use to bring my food scraps out from the kitchen. Okay, so this container, I got this at Goodwill, but I love this container for my food scraps because number one, I can hold it with one hand, I can open the lid with one hand. It's real easy to open and close with one hand, and it's airtight, so it doesn't smell up the kitchen. When I'm cooking, I just keep this sitting on the countertop next to the kitchen sink, or like in the windowsill above the kitchen sink is where I keep this, so it's easy access. And I'll just throw banana peels, eggshells, whatever food scraps I have from the garden, and you know, odds and ends from the veggies, that all gets thrown in here. And then this is what I use for my greens for the most part. I do also mix in, anytime I clean out the chickens' bedding, I'll mix that in too. And that is already kind of composting because I use straw for their bedding and then their manure is mixed into it. So it's already a combination of greens and browns. So that I'll throw into the compost pile as well. But this I do really like. They do sell them at Walmart. I can leave a link for you, but you don't have to get this specific container. Those are just the things I liked about it, that it was tall and skinny, so it holds a lot but doesn't take up a lot of space, and just the ease of being able to open this one-handed when I'm cooking and stuff like that. But again, I'll leave it linked. But if you have a different container you want to use, that's totally fine. If you're keeping it in the kitchen, I would recommend using something airtight just so that it doesn't smell. But anyways, so I bring this down and I have one pile where I'm gonna dump my stuff. Actually, before I dump this out, I am gonna pull some of these weeds, because honestly, I just threw these step-in posts here to mark off where I wanted to make my piles, and I didn't get a chance to actually like pull the weeds out of the way first. You don't necessarily have to, but it'll make it easier for me to turn the pile later, so I'll probably pull these. So before I dump this on, I'm gonna do some of that. But I love how my roosters always wait until I'm filming to start screaming their heads off. I don't know, whatever. So anyways, what I would do then is dump my pile of greens right here into the pile, and then I would take some straw or some browns and throw it on top. And that's throwing the carbon on top is going to help keep the smell down, like, so you don't get a bad smell out here, and it'll help with keeping the rodents out of it too a lot of times. So that's all I do. So I only need 2 piles. I have one pile over here set aside where I can collect the grass clippings, the dead leaves, the straw, things like that. I'll just keep that in a pile next to my compost pile. And then every time I add nitrogen, I'm gonna throw some carbon on top in a 3-to-1 ratio with the carbon, three times the carbon as I do nitrogen. So that's it. I mean, that's really all I do. I don't get real specific with it, like I said, and it's gonna sit all year and I'll use it next year, so it has a long time to break down, and every once in a while you just like flip it around or something, you know. So I just keep it simple. I don't make a big fuss over measuring things exactly or keeping track of the temperature or turning it every so many days. I just, if I walk by and it looks like it needs to be turned, I'll turn it, you know. So with anything, with homesteading especially, and just getting into things for the first time, it's always a good idea to try to do it for free before you invest in supplies and materials, because sometimes you'll try something thinking like, I'm gonna do this every day and it's gonna be amazing and it'll change my life. And then you start doing it, you invest all this money into equipment, you do it once or twice and realize this is way more work than I thought it would be, and I'm not gonna be able to keep up with it. So then you end up like trying to sell the equipment off, or just, you know, giving it away and losing the money. So anytime that you can do something for free to try it before you buy materials, I highly recommend doing that. So in this case, literally just make a pile on the ground. Like, do not go out and buy some really expensive composter, and, you know, I mean, again, unless you have little toddlers that are gonna be climbing through the compost pile, you really don't need to invest any money in making one. So just try it out the easiest way possible. Now for me, we do have extremely high winds in our area, just randomly all the time. So I am gonna put up a little bit of a snow fence around this. I'll get that out and show you. All right, so this is snow fence. You can use snow fence or safety fence. I already had this sitting in the garage because I had been using it for other things. So it's not something I went out and bought for this project, but I figured since I already have it, what I'm gonna do is just make an outline of like wrap it around the outside of these step-in posts, which these step-in posts, they're super nice and easy. Now it's not gonna come out of the ground, here we go. It's literally just like a metal post that's sharp on the bottom with a little foot pedal, so that you stick it in the ground and you just step on the post and it goes in the ground, and that's it. So they're super easy, really easy to move if you change your mind, and they're only a few dollars each. So I got these at Tractor Supply, but these are just something that's really nice and temporary if you're looking for something like this. But again, just because of the really high winds that I don't want my dead leaves and straw blowing down the road, I'm gonna wrap the outside of this with the snow fence, just to give it a little bit of something to like hold the leaves in place from the wind. But other than that, I'm not really doing anything over here other than pulling these weeds, obviously. All right, I'm gonna get some of these weeds out of the way before we go any further. I got this section pretty well done. These weeds that I pulled out, I'm going to throw back in here because these are nitrogen. Those will turn into compost as well. So I'm going to dump them back in. I'm going to dump my food scraps on here. Then I'm going to weed this other section where I'm going to keep the carbon materials, and I'll run and get some straw to use for that. So I dumped out my food scraps. I am just gonna crush these eggshells with my boot and spread them around a little bit. When you put eggshells in your compost, make sure you rinse them out first. You don't want to put them in here with the albumin still in them because it will attract rodents. So rinse them out and then put them in your compost. So I have the back of it all fenced in. I'm just gonna leave this step-in post here just so I remember that everything to the left is my nitrogen pile and to the right is the carbon. And I'm honestly not even gonna cut off this extra snow fence because I might want a longer piece for something else in the future. So I'm just gonna let this roll lay here. Okay, I brought over the straw bale. This is one of those do as I say, not as I do moments, because this straw bale has been sitting out in the rain for a couple of months. And you really don't want to do that with straw because, as you'll see, it's growing all kinds of mushrooms and stuff like that. So obviously I'm not going to use this as bedding in my chicken coop, and I don't really want to put it on my plants for mulch. So I'm going to use this straw up in the compost pile, and just hopefully the mushrooms will die off eventually. Like I said, I don't need this for another year, so hopefully the mushrooms will not affect anything. But like I said, do as I say, not as I do. Use dry, fresh straw if you're doing straw. So basically you want to cover up all of the greens that you just put in there with brown, and then you'll let it sit. You'll come back and turn it every once in a while, but you don't need to do it now. You just want to cover up all your greens. And compost does need moisture in order for the process to work. But since this is outside unsheltered, it'll get rain, it'll get dew in the mornings, and that'll be fine. It'll take care of itself moisture-wise. So you can see how big this pile is already, and I literally just started it today. If you're using, like if you're pulling weeds and throwing your weeds in here, this pile is gonna grow faster than you can believe. So you're gonna end up with a great amount of compost by the next year. And especially if you're putting all your grass clippings and dead leaves and everything in here too. So that's it. That is my compost pile. And next year, hopefully I won't have to buy any potting soil. And then I'll have compost to spread throughout the garden, and life will be good. So I'm gonna leave this extra straw here just for easy access, and every day when I bring down the kitchen scraps and dump them on top, just add a little more straw over top of the kitchen scraps, and that'll keep the smell down, it'll keep the rodents out, and we'll start the composting process. Time to spoil my chickens. I'm gonna pick them some bok choy and give them a little snack. Go. Hey chickie babies, I got yum yums. Come here babies. You want yum yums? Go buddy boy. Good boy. Come on chickie babies, I got yum yums. They love their greens. Go babies. Hey Bruiser, you want some yum yums buddy? So good boy. Good boy. Here, babies. So again, I just want to reiterate, you do not need to spend a lot of money when you're trying out something new. And I recommend that you don't actually, because maybe you'll do this, maybe you'll make a couple compost piles and then realize you don't actually want to do this anymore. Maybe you have issues that were unforeseen, or you just don't have the time or don't have the necessity and you decide not to do it. You don't want to waste a lot of investment financially into something you're not sure you want to do. So that's with anything, with gardening, with canning, with any kind of homesteading. If you want to learn how to can, find somebody who already does it, go to their house and do it with them before you buy a canner and before you buy thousands of mason jars. Okay, just some general advice from a decade-long homesteader. But anyways, I'm glad you guys hung out with me today, and I hope this was helpful and motivational for you. And as you can see, I have a lot more weeding to do today. So I'm gonna get some of this done and then head inside to edit this video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.